picture this. You're sitting in a conference room, the air conditioning is humming, someone at the end of the table is just relentlessly clicking a pen.
Oh, I know that sound.
Right. It's the worst. And then your boss leans back and says, let's go around the room and hear everyone's thoughts.
Instant panic.
Exactly. You are exactly 3 people away from having to speak. Instantly, your brain initiates this full system override. Your heart starts hammering against your ribs. Your palms get clammy.
Yeah, the classic fight or flight.
And you are rehearsing your opening sentence so frantically in your head that you have entirely stopped listening to what anyone else is saying.
Oh, yeah. You're just in survival mode at that point.
Yep. That nervous stutter, the utter dread of speaking up in a meeting, or the pure, unadulterated terror of standing up to give a formal presentation. It is a universally relatable scenario.
It really, really is.
And if you are nodding your head right now, or, feeling a sympathetic spike in your blood pressure, this deep dive is entirely for you. Because our mission today is to take you from that nervous wreck, silently panicking in the boardroom, to a confident, commanding communicator.
Which is completely possible, by the way.
It is. And to do this, we are unpacking the insights from Mike Acker's brilliant book, Speak with No Fear. We're going to extract some very specific, actionable tactics from his methodology to help you overcome stage fright and, well, finally ensure your voice is heard.
It's such a vital topic because that physical reaction you just described, the racing heart, the tunnel vision, the sudden inability to swallow, it happens to almost everyone at some point.
Yeah, public speaking anxiety is incredibly widespread.
It is, but the most important thing to establish right out of the gate is that it is entirely manageable once you understand the mechanics of it. You know, this deep dive isn't just about giving you a few shallow survival tips to white knuckle your way through your next slide deck.
We're not going to tell you to picture the audience in their underwear.
No, please don't do that. That doesn't work anyway. We are talking about fundamentally shifting how you view your own voice, your physiological responses, and your relationship with your audience. It's really a complete psychological reframing of the experience.
Right, because to fix a problem that deep, you can't just put a Band-Aid on it. You have to look at the root cause.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the first crucial step Acker lays out. Before you can ever stand in front of an audience and deliver a message, you actually have to win the battle inside your own head.
Yes, the inner game.
Yeah, we have to move from this general cloudy dread of public speaking into the actual psychological root of the fear. You cannot defeat an invisible enemy.
No, you can't. And Acker calls this process fear identification. It's in the first couple of chapters, Uncover and Clean the Wound, and Imagine the Worst first.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because deconstructing fear sounds a lot like debugging a complex string of code, or maybe dismantling a really scary, dangerous piece of machinery.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Well, think about it. If you walk into a room and look at this massive machine as a whole, it's terrifying, right? It's loud, it's spinning, it's intimidating.
Definitely.
But if you walk up to it and start taking it apart, gear by gear, bolt by bolt, eventually you are just holding a harmless piece of metal in your hand. It completely loses its power over you.
That's spot on.
But here's my question for you. How do you stop those gears from magically putting themselves back together in your head right before you step out on stage?
Well, what's fascinating here is that you prevent those gears from reassembling by removing the element of surprise. Identifying your specific triggers strips the fear of its mystery.
So it's not just a big, scary blob of anxiety anymore.
Right. You aren't fighting a vague, shadowy monster. You are managing specific, known variables. The human brain, particularly the amygdala, relies heavily on ambiguity to sustain panic.
Oh, it loves to fill in the blanks with catastrophe.
Exactly. We assume there's a tiger in the room, but when you ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid of here? You force your prefrontal cortex to engage.
So you're asking, is it a fear of judgment? Or a fear of forgetting my material?
Or even just lingering embarrassment from a botched book report in middle school? Once you identify it, if you know your specific trigger is losing your place and facing dead silence, your brain stops screaming, "We are going to die!" and starts saying, "I need a strategy for my notes."
Right. You prepare for the worst case scenario, which Acker talks a lot about, right? Imagining the worst first, which sounds terrible on the surface, but it's actually about lowering the stakes.
Precisely. Let's look at a concrete example from the material, a guy named John. John had this high-stakes quarterly review coming up, and for weeks the dread was paralyzing him.
Just a dark cloud hanging over him.
Yeah, but instead of letting it remain a vague cloud, he forced himself to deconstruct it. He realized his actual fear wasn't the presentation itself.
What was it?
It was a specific vice president interrupting him with a hyper-technical question and causing him to freeze.
Oh, wow. That is specific.
Right. So John imagined the absolute worst-case scenario.
Yeah.
He imagined the VP asking the question, and he imagined himself freezing. And then he realized the world keeps spinning. He doesn't explode. He just looks a bit foolish for a moment.
And once you see that, the stakes drop. He could build a contingency plan. Like, if the VP asks this question, I don't know, I'll take a breath, write it down, and say, I will follow up with the exact data this afternoon.
Yes. And then you have someone like Sarah who used these proactive methods too. She used fear deconstruction to progressively overcome her worries. But the key for both of them was pairing that deconstruction with intense mental rehearsal and visualization techniques.
Which isn't just daydreaming, right?
No, neurologically speaking, the brain has a very hard time distinguishing between an intensely visualized event and a real one. John proactively visualized himself delivering the material calmly, and specifically visualized himself handling that VP's interruption smoothly.
Building a neural pathway.
Exactly. A mental track record of success before he ever stepped into the boardroom. That is the mindset shift Acker talks about, moving from a fear-based mindset to a growth mindset.
But, once that fear is deconstructed, once you've dismantled the machine and thrown away the gears, there's an empty space left behind in your mind. And nature abhors a vacuum.
It sure does.
You can't just walk out there and be not afraid. You have to actively build confidence in that empty space. Which leads us into the next core concept from chapters 3 and 4. You, be you, and speak to one, speak to all. Moving from self-doubt to self-image.
Right, because removing a negative doesn't automatically create a positive. You have to cultivate presence. Acker introduces thought awareness here. You have to become intensely aware of your negative thought patterns so you can challenge them in real time.
So catching yourself in the act of panicking.
Yes, it requires metacognition. It's about creating a psychological pause. The second you feel your chest tighten in that boardroom, you have to train yourself to stop and literally ask yourself internally, what sentence just played in my head?
You have to catch the thought before you can change it. And once you catch it, you apply cognitive restructuring. You replace those negative self-defeating thoughts with positive affirmations.
And realistic expectations, like Emily from the book. She mastered her ideas to create a really solid, positive mindset.
Now, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
If I am standing in the wings or waiting for my turn at the table, and I am absolutely terrified, isn't telling myself I am a great speaker, everyone loves me, just lying to myself.
I get why you'd ask that.
How does cognitive restructuring actually differ from just toxic positivity or delusion?
That is a phenomenal distinction to make, and it's a very common misconception about affirmations. Cognitive restructuring is not about delusion.
So it's not staring in the mirror saying, I'm the next Steve Jobs.
No, not if you've never given a keynote in your life. Your brain knows when you are lying to it, and it will reject that. Cognitive restructuring is about affirming readiness and competence. It has to be anchored in reality.
Okay, so what does that actually sound like in practice?
It's shifting your internal monologue from an irrational, catastrophic thought like, I am going to completely fail and they're going to fire me, to a factual, grounded statement.
Like what?
You take that psychological pause and replace it with, I have spent 3 weeks preparing this data. I know this material better than anyone in this room, and I am capable of delivering it clearly.
So you're basing the affirmation on the undeniable reality of your preparation, overriding the emotional panic with a logical fact.
Exactly. David is a great example of this in the book. He learned that cultivating a positive, fact-based self-view and working on specific actions makes anyone a confident speaker. Confidence isn't innate. It's tied directly to how you perceive yourself.
And what's wild is how deeply connected this internal cognitive restructuring is to your external physical delivery.
Right.
Because the body follows the mind's lead, right?
Absolutely. Think about the physiological loop happening here. If your internal monologue is apologizing for your existence, your body physically responds to that submission.
Your shoulder slump.
Right. And when your shoulders slump, your chest caves in, which compresses your diaphragm. When your diaphragm is compressed, you can't pull in enough air.
which makes your voice shaky and quiet.
Yes.
Hmm.
And then hearing your own shaky voice triggers more panic in the brain, reinforcing the negative thought. It is a vicious downward spiral.
But you can reverse engineer that spiral. If your internal monologue is saying, I have valuable researched information to share, your body instinctively adopts a posture of authority.
You stand taller?
Yeah, your chest opens up. That allows your diaphragm to expand fully, meaning you have the breath support for a clear vocal delivery and better voice modulation. You literally sound more confident.
Which tells your brain, hey, we're doing great, which lowers your cortisol levels.
Good.
It's an upward spiral. The mindset dictates the posture dictates the breath, and the breath dictates the voice.
That is such a powerful connection. But let's inject a dose of reality here. Mindset and self-image are the foundation. We've cleaned the wound, we've identified the fear, we've rebuilt the self-image based on competence. But confidence quickly crumbles if you stand up there and realize you don't actually know what you're doing.
Very true.
I mean, you can be the most cognitively restructured, confidently postured person in the room, but if your presentation is a disorganized mess, you're going to crash.
Oh, 100%.
Which brings us from the internal mindset to external preparation, chapters 5 and 6. It's not about you, and channel the power. How do we translate this inner confidence into the actual architecture of a great speech?
Well, preparation is the ultimate confidence builder. You simply cannot skip this step. Thoroughly researching your topic, organizing your thoughts, and anticipating challenges, that is what gives those positive affirmations we just talked about their actual power.
You actually have to do the work.
Yes. But there is a massive debate in the world of public speaking about exactly how to prepare that material. The battle between scripting and outlining.
Oh, this is one of my favorite concepts. Because scripting provides a highly structured word-for-word approach, while outlining allows for flexibility and a more natural flow.
Where do you fall on that?
Well, choosing between scripting and outlining feels like choosing between a turn-by-turn GPS and a general map.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
If you write a full word-for-word script, that's your turn-by-turn GPS. It feels very safe in the driveway. But when you are up there, full of adrenaline, it makes you sound a bit robotic.
And if you lose your place?
Exactly. If you miss a single word, if you miss a turn on your GPS, what happens? The GPS starts yelling, recalculating, you panic, your brain freezes, and the whole speech can crash because you've lost the exact phrasing you memorized.
That is the perfect analogy. And Acker heavily favors the map. Approach the logical structure of an outline. An outline gives you your starting point, your destination, and the major landmarks you need to hit along the way.
It's so much more forgiving.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture of reducing fear, a logical flow actually frees the speaker.
How so?
When your structure is solid, when you have a clear opening, cohesive main points, and a summarized takeaway, you don't have to panic about what comes next. You don't have to memorize words. You just have to remember the landmarks.
It lets you take scenic detours if the audience is vibing with a point without getting completely lost.
Exactly. Like Mark, another example from the book. He used organized content arrangement to inform and convince his audience. The architecture of the speech does the heavy lifting for you.
Now, setting up that map requires rehearsal, and the methodology points out some specific rehearsal techniques. Practicing out loud is crucial because your mouth actually needs muscle memory for the words, not just your brain.
Yeah, thinking the words isn't enough.
But it also recommends the one technique that everyone universally hates: recording yourself.
Ugh, yes. Recording yourself is brutal. Nobody likes watching themselves on video or hearing their own voice played back.
It's the worst.
But it is the fastest, most effective way to improve. It allows you to step outside your own subjective experience and objectively see your posture, hear your vocal modulation, and spot where your structure falls apart.
It's where you notice if you're swaying back and forth or using 100 filler words.
It is painful, but it is necessary. It's also where you can refine your use of transitions and signposts, like Sarah, who used methodical preparation like this to really feel secure in her delivery.
Yeah, signposts. Using phrases like, next, let's discuss, or this brings us to our third point, or even just, so what does the data tell us? It seems so basic, but it's incredibly crucial for managing anxiety, isn't it?
Absolutely. Signposts are a gift to the audience, giving their brains a second to catch up. But more importantly, they are a lifeline for the speaker.
They are like speed bumps for your own panic.
That's a great way to put it.
When you're terrified, your brain wants to rush. You want to talk as fast as humanly possible to get the ordeal over with. Giving your audience a signpost physically forces you to take a breath, pause, and consciously transition.
It keeps you from sprinting off a cliff. They are the visible landmarks on your map. They keep everyone in the room, including your own nervous system, on track.
Okay, so we have the internal mindset locked in. We have a brilliantly structured, well-outlined speech with clear signposts. But a speech doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it does not.
It requires an audience. And that brings us to Chapter 7, Be in the Moment. Transitioning from preparation to the actual moment of delivery, connecting with the room.
This is where all the preparation meets reality. The core focus here is effective audience engagement. Acker stresses the absolute necessity of audience analysis.
Which means understanding their needs, their interests, and their expectations before you even open your mouth.
Exactly. Tailoring the content to resonate with the specific people sitting in front of you.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because there seems to be a massive paradox here. Well, Chapter 5 says it's not about you. But Chapter 7 says to heavily engage the audience and analyze their expectations.
Yeah.
If I'm already prone to anxiety, and now I'm hyper-focused on analyzing the audience's expectations of me, doesn't that make me more nervous about their judgment?
It seems entirely counterintuitive, doesn't it? But focusing intensely on the audience is actually the ultimate pressure release valve for a speaker.
Wait, really? How?
Think about the mechanics of stage fright. When you are terrified of speaking, who are you actually thinking about?
Myself.
Right. You are thinking entirely about yourself. How do I look? What if I mess up? What will they think of me? Stage fright at its core is a form of extreme, paralyzing self-centeredness.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive paradigm shift. You're saying the panic is fundamentally selfish.
Yes, and that is the liberation of it. When you shift your focus to the audience, when you step up and ask, what do they need to hear today? How can I help them solve their problem? You stop obsessing over your own internal fears.
Because you're focused on delivering value to them.
Exactly. You transform your identity in that moment from a performer seeking approval into a messenger delivering a gift. And you don't judge a messenger for stumbling over a word if the message is valuable.
That completely reframes the energy in the room. And it explains why the methodology emphasizes storytelling techniques.
Because humans are hardwired for stories.
Right. If I just read you a list of quarterly statistics, your eyes will glaze over. But if I tell you a compelling anecdote about a specific client whose life was impacted by those statistics, suddenly we're sharing an experience.
Yes, like Anna from the book. She builds these memorable presentations by combining interactive features, storytelling, and audience analysis.
And interactive elements take that shared experience a step further. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Asking a rhetorical question, running a quick poll of the room, it breaks the invisible wall between the speaker and the audience. It turns a monologue, which is inherently stressful, into a dialogue.
Because when they're participating, they are literally sharing the energetic load of the room with you. You aren't up there all alone anymore.
You're just facilitating a shared conversation among peers. And a conversation is inherently less terrifying than a performance.
It relieves you from being the sole focal point under the spotlight. So let's look at the incredible journey we've just taken through this framework. We started by uncovering the vague dread and deconstructing the specific roots of the fear, pulling the terrifying machine apart piece by piece so we could prepare for the worst.
The inner game.
Exactly. Then we talked about rewiring those negative thoughts into a confident self-image, using the psychological pause to anchor our internal monologue in the reality of our competence.
And fixing that posture breath loop.
Right. Then we learned to map out our speeches with clear structures and signposts, rather than relying on a rigid, fragile GPS script. And finally, we realized that the ultimate hack to being in the moment is to recognize the self-centered nature of stage fright and focus entirely on engaging the audience.
It is a brilliantly cohesive system. It addresses the deep psychology, the physical mechanics, and the practical delivery.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that conquering this fear is a journey, absolutely. But it also means that by applying Acker's tactics, you are entirely capable of becoming that assured, successful communicator in your next meeting or presentation. You have the actual tools to ensure your voice is heard.
And you know, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about strategies to speak with no fear, to deconstruct and diminish that anxiety. But consider this one final thought. What if the physical sensation of fear, the racing heart, the heightened awareness is biologically identical to the feeling of excitement?
Well, that's interesting.
The body doesn't know the difference. Only the mind assigns the label. Once you implement these tools and clear away the self-doubt, what if that lingering nervous energy isn't an enemy to be destroyed, but a profound source of passion waiting to be channeled into your message.
Let that sink in. The next time you're sitting in that conference room 3 people away from speaking and that heart starts hammering against your ribs, maybe you aren't panicking. Maybe you're just getting ready.